I was standing on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the sun dip behind the Vermont hills, when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't answer. Something in my gut told me that call would shatter the peace I'd spent a lifetime earning. I was right. "Hey, Mom," my son Clifton said, his voice dripping with that fake cheerfulness he always used when he wanted something. "So, Marlene and I have been talking. We're coming to visit your farm this weekend." I smiled, genuinely happy. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I haven't seen you in months." "Yeah, about that," he continued, and I heard him take a breath. "Marlene's family is coming too. Her mother, her brother, his girlfriend, and a couple of cousins. You've got plenty of space, right?" My hand tightened around the phone. 6 extra people. In my small farmhouse. Without asking. "Clifton, that's—" "Oh, and Mom?" His tone shifted, harder now, almost dismissive. "Marlene and I are taking the master bedroom. She doesn't do well in small beds, you know? You can use the guest room. We'll be there Friday. If you don't like it, you can always go back to the city for a few days." Click. He hung up before I could say another word. I stood there, frozen, the phone still pressed against my ear, listening to dead air. My chest felt tight. My breath came shallow. For 45 years, I'd taught high school literature, raised that boy alone after his father died, sacrificed everything so he could have a better life than I did. And this was how he spoke to me? Take the guest room. In my own house. If you don't like it, leave. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. My name is Eleanor Ridgway. I'm 71 years old, and I thought I'd finally earned the right to peace. After decades of grading papers until midnight, after raising Clifton on my own, after pouring every penny and every prayer into that boy, I'd retired and bought this small farmhouse in upstate Vermont. 6 acres of quiet, a red barn, white shutters, a garden where I grew herbs and kept chickens I'd named after poets, Emily, Sylvia, and Maya. For the first time in my life, silence didn't hurt. It healed. Every morning, I brewed tea and watched the sun rise over the hills. I fixed up the barn myself, painted the fence, and read books on the porch. No lesson plans. No parent-teacher meetings. No late-night phone calls asking for money. Just peace. Until now. I walked back inside and set my teacup on the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. Not from fear. From something else. Something quiet and cold that had been building in me for years, and I'd just been too polite, too tired, too loving to acknowledge it. My son had become entitled. Spoiled. He'd learned to take, not give. And maybe that was partly my fault. I'd made everything too easy for him. I'd cushioned every fall, paid every bill, never let him feel the weight of consequence. But that was about to change. I didn't cry. I didn't call him back to yell or argue. I just stood there in my quiet kitchen, surrounded by the herbs drying on the windowsill, the hum of the old refrigerator, the soft clucking of my chickens outside, and I made a decision. I would teach my son a lesson he'd never forget. Not with anger, not with shouting, but with silence, with strategy, with a kind of quiet justice that sinks in slowly, like roots spreading through soil. I picked up the phone again. But this time, I wasn't calling Clifton. I was calling someone who could help me show him exactly who built the home he thought he could just take. So what do you think? Should a mother teach her son this kind of lesson, or should she have just accepted the disrespect to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The woman who answered the phone was Marjorie Chen, the real estate agent who'd helped me buy this farm a year ago. Sharp, practical, and discreet. Exactly the kind of person I needed. "Eleanor," she said, surprised. "It's late. Everything okay?" "Marjorie, I need a favor," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "Can you come by tomorrow morning? I want to discuss renting out my farmhouse." There was a pause. "Renting? Are you leaving Vermont?" "No," I said softly. I'm staying right here. But I need the house available. Fully furnished. Starting this Friday. Another pause, longer this time. Then, carefully, Eleanor, what's going on? I looked out the window at the darkened farmhouse, at the porch light casting long shadows across the yard. Let's just say I want to teach someone a lesson about respect. And I need your help to do it. Marjorie didn't ask any more questions. She knew me well enough by now. I'll be there at 9. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying Clifton's words in my head, each one cutting deeper than the last. You can use the guest room. As if I were the visitor in my own home. If you don't like it, go back to the city. As if I were an inconvenience. A burden. Something to be managed and moved aside. I thought about the years I'd spent raising him alone. His father, my husband David, had died in a car accident when Clifton was only 8. I remembered the funeral, holding my son's small hand while he cried, promising him I'd never let him feel alone. I'd kept that promise. Maybe too well. I worked double shifts as a teacher, tutored on weekends, skipped vacations so he could go to summer camp. I bought him the sneakers he wanted, the video games, the car when he turned 16. I paid for his college, his wedding, his down payment on the house he shared with Marlene. And somewhere along the way, love became servitude. I taught him to take without thinking, to expect without earning, to demand without gratitude. And now, at 71, I was being kicked out of my own bedroom by the boy I'd sacrificed everything for. Morning came slow and gray. I fed the chickens, brewed my tea, and waited. Marjorie arrived right on time, her silver sedan crunching up the gravel driveway. She stepped out carrying a leather folder and a concerned expression. "All right, Eleanor," she said as we sat at my kitchen table. "Tell me what you're thinking." I laid it out simply. My son is coming this Friday with his wife and 6 of her relatives. He informed me, didn't ask, informed me that he's taking my bedroom and I should use the guest room. Or leave. Marjorie's eyebrows shot up. He said what? He hung up before I could respond. I continued. So I won't respond. Not with words, anyway. She leaned back, studying me. What exactly are you planning? I want to rent this house out, I said. Officially. Legally. Starting this weekend. I'll move into the barn apartment. The barn apartment? She looked confused. I smiled. Come with me. I led her across the yard to the old red barn. From the outside, it looked like any other country barn, weathered and rustic. But inside, behind a door most people wouldn't notice, was a fully renovated studio apartment. Kitchenette, bathroom, bedroom, sitting area. I'd had it built quietly over the past 6 months, originally planning to rent it out to summer visitors. Now it would serve a different purpose. Marjorie whistled low. Eleanor, you sly fox. I have everything I need here, I said. The farmhouse can go to someone who'll actually appreciate it. And your son will learn what it feels like when something you thought was yours disappears. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You know what? I've got a couple from Maine looking for a month-long rental. They're quiet, respectful, have 2 small kids. They've been searching for something exactly like this. My heart beat faster. How soon can we make it happen? If you're serious, I can have papers ready by tomorrow. They could move in Sunday evening. I met her eyes. Do it. Marjorie left an hour later with my signature on half a dozen documents. The rental agreement, the temporary lease, all of it legal, binding, and completely within my rights as the property owner. I spent the rest of Wednesday cleaning, organizing, moving my most personal belongings into the barn apartment. Photo albums, my mother's jewelry, David's watch, the quilt I'd made when Clifton was born. I packed them carefully, each item a memory, each memory a reminder of what I'd given. Thursday passed in a blur of preparation. I stocked the barn apartment with groceries, made sure the Wi-Fi reached, tested the small television. Everything worked perfectly. That evening, I sat on the porch of the farmhouse one last time as its owner in residence. The sun set in streaks of orange and purple. The chickens settled in for the night. Everything was peaceful. And tomorrow, my son would arrive expecting to take over. But what he'd find instead would change everything. If you were Eleanor, would you go through with this plan? Or would you back out at the last minute? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens when they arrive. Friday morning came with a weight in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not doubt, something heavier. Sadness mixed with resolve. I woke before dawn in the barn apartment, made my tea, and sat by the small window overlooking the farmhouse. It looked so peaceful in the early light, the white paint glowing soft against the dark trees behind it. I'd bought this place to heal, to rest, to finally breathe after decades of noise and obligation. And now my own son was trying to take it from me. Not with force. Not with cruelty, exactly. But with something worse, casual entitlement. The kind that doesn't even see what it's doing wrong. I thought about calling him. Maybe talking it through. Maybe explaining how his words had cut me, how his tone had made me feel small and disposable in my own home. But I knew better. Words wouldn't work with Clifton anymore. He'd apologize in that empty way people do when they're caught, then go right back to the same behavior. I'd seen it before. The time he borrowed money and never paid it back. The birthdays he forgot. The promises he broke. Each time, I'd forgiven him. Made excuses. Told myself he was busy, stressed, still learning. But a man in his 40s isn't still learning. He's learned. He just hasn't learned the right lessons. So today, I would teach him. I finished my tea and walked back to the farmhouse. I'd left it spotless. Beds made, towels folded, fresh flowers in the vases. Everything perfect. Everything welcoming. Everything about to belong to someone else. Marjorie had called last night to confirm. The couple from Maine had signed the lease. They'd be arriving Sunday at 6. The paperwork was filed. Legal. Done. I left a note on the kitchen counter, held down by a smooth river stone I'd found by the creek. Welcome. Make yourselves at home. I'll be in the barn if you need anything. Eleanor. Short. Polite. Giving nothing away. Then I locked the door, pocketed the key, and went back to the barn apartment to wait. They arrived just after noon. I heard them before I saw them. 3 cars rolling up the gravel driveway, engines loud, music thumping from one of the open windows. I stayed inside, watching through the curtain. Clifton got out first. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing expensive sunglasses and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. He looked good. Healthy. Successful. He also looked like a stranger. Marlene stepped out next, all long legs and designer clothes, her blonde hair perfect despite the drive. She wrinkled her nose immediately, looking around like the fresh country air offended her. Then came the relatives. Marlene's mother, Priscilla, clutching her purse like someone might steal it. Her brother, Todd, loud and brash, already complaining about the drive. His girlfriend, a young woman who looked bored. 2 cousins I didn't recognize, both glued to their phones. 8 people. 8 people who thought they were about to take over my home for the weekend. Clifton stretched, looked around, then called out, "Mom? You here?" I didn't answer. Not yet. He shrugged, pulled a key from his pocket, my spare key, the one I'd given him years ago for emergencies, and unlocked the front door like he owned the place. They all filed in, loud and careless, dragging suitcases and bags. Through the window, I could hear Marlene's voice. "God, it smells like hay." "It's a farm, babe," Clifton said, laughing. "What did you expect?" I expected charm, not this. Priscilla's sharp voice cut through. "Is there Wi-Fi?" I watched them move through my house, touching my things, claiming my space. Marlene pointed up the stairs. "Come on, Cliff. Let's grab the big room before anyone else does." And just like that, they disappeared upstairs. Into my bedroom. My sanctuary. The place where I'd cried after David died, where I'd read late into the night, where I'd planned this new chapter of my life. They took it without asking, without thinking, without a single thought that maybe, just maybe, they should show some respect. I sat down slowly, my hands trembling. Not from anger anymore. From something else. Relief. Because now I knew I'd made the right choice. I knew this wasn't about revenge or pettiness or being cruel. This was about boundaries. About teaching. About showing my son that love without respect is just another form of taking. I picked up my phone and texted Marjorie. They're here. Everything's on schedule. She replied immediately. New tenants arrive Sunday at 6 p.m. You sure about this? I typed back, more sure than I've been about anything in years. Outside, I could hear laughter, shouting, the sound of bottles clinking. They'd brought alcohol. They were settling in for a party. In my house. Without me. And they still hadn't come looking for me. I closed the curtain, turned away from the window, and whispered to the empty room. Let them enjoy it while they can. Because in 48 hours, everything was about to change. Would you have confronted them immediately, or would you have stayed silent like Eleanor? Drop your answer below, and make sure you're subscribed. Things are about to get very interesting. Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of shouting. Not angry shouting. Playful. Loud. The kind of noise that comes from people who think the whole world belongs to them. I peeked through the barn window and saw them in my garden, some of them anyway, trampling through the herb beds I'd spent months cultivating. Todd was tossing a football. One of the cousins was taking selfies by my chicken coop. Emily, Sylvia, and Maya scattered nervously. Marlene's voice drifted across the yard. Can someone make mimosas? I'm dying here. My mimosas. My champagne flutes. My orange juice from the farmer's market. I took a slow breath and turned away. Let them reveal themselves. Let them show me exactly who they were when they thought no one was watching. Because that's what this was really about. Not punishment. Understanding. I needed to see if my son had any awareness left. Any shame. Any shred of the boy I'd raised who used to write me Mother's Day cards and cry during Hallmark commercials. I spent the morning reading, tending to the small garden plot behind the barn, staying out of sight. Every now and then, I'd hear them. Music, laughter, breaking glass at one point, followed by Clifton's voice saying, It's fine. Just sweep it up. It's fine. In my home. My things. Around noon, Marjorie texted me. Just confirmed with the new tenants. They'll arrive tomorrow at 6 p.m. sharp. Excited to move in. Do you need anything? I texted back. Just moral support. You've got it. This is the gutsiest thing I've ever seen a client do. Or the craziest. Sometimes they're the same thing. I smiled despite myself. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was crazy. But it was also necessary. That afternoon, I made myself a simple lunch, soup and bread, and sat on the small porch of the barn apartment. From there, I had a clear view of the farmhouse. I watched them come and go, carrying bottles, playing music, treating the place like a vacation rental they'd paid for. Except they hadn't paid. They'd just assumed. At one point, Clifton came outside and looked around. For a moment, I thought he might be looking for me. But then Marlene called from inside, and he turned and went back in without a second glance. He hadn't checked on me once. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. 43 years I'd been his mother. And in one weekend, I'd become invisible. Evening came, and with it, the smell of barbecue. They'd found my grill, my charcoal, my tools. I watched Todd manning the grill, beer in hand, laughing at something on his phone. Priscilla sat in my rocking chair on the porch, the one I'd bought at an estate sale, and restored myself. She sipped wine and complained about the bugs. And through the window, I could see Marlene rearranging my living room furniture. My furniture. My home. My life. And they didn't care. I went to bed early that night, but I didn't sleep well. I kept thinking about tomorrow, about the look on Clifton's face when he realized what I'd done, about whether he'd understand, or whether he'd just be angry. Part of me hoped he'd understand. Part of me hoped this would be the wake-up call he needed. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt too many times, ignored too many times, taken for granted too many times, didn't care anymore what he felt. He needed to learn. And sometimes the only way to learn is to lose. Sunday morning arrived gray and quiet. I could hear them starting to stir around 9, groggy and hungover. Someone turned on the coffee maker, my coffee, and I heard muffled voices through the walls. I got dressed carefully. Simple clothes. Comfortable shoes. I packed a small bag with essentials, just in case things got heated and I needed to leave for a few hours. Then I walked across the yard to the farmhouse, knocked on my own front door, and waited. Marlene answered, still in her bathrobe, hair messy, makeup smudged. She blinked at me like I was a stranger. "Oh," she said flatly. "You're still here." Not "good morning." Not "thank you for letting us stay." Just surprised that I existed. "I am," I said pleasantly. "Just wanted to let you know I'll be heading into town for a bit. Running some errands." She yawned. "Okay." "Also," I added, my voice still calm, still kind, "the new tenants will be arriving this evening around 6. You'll want to have your things packed by then." She stared at me. "What?" "The new tenants," I repeated slowly. "They're moving in tonight. The lease started this morning, actually, but I gave you all some grace time to get packed up." Her face went pale, then red. "What are you talking about? This is your house." I corrected gently. "I rented it out. Signed the papers Thursday. They're a lovely couple from Maine. Very respectful." I let that last word hang in the air. Marlene's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then she turned and screamed, "Clifton." I smiled, nodded politely, and walked back toward the barn. Behind me, I heard chaos erupting. Shouting. Confusion. My son's voice, loud and angry, calling my name. But I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. I just kept walking, my heart pounding, my hands steady, my mind clear. Because the lesson had officially begun. Do you think Eleanor just made the biggest mistake of her life, or the smartest move she's ever made? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The confrontation is coming, and you do not want to miss it. Clifton caught up to me before I reached the barn. His face was red, his eyes wild, his breath coming fast like he'd been running. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" he shouted. I turned slowly, calmly. I'd been preparing for this moment all weekend, and now that it was here, I felt strangely peaceful. "Good morning, Clifton," I said evenly. "Did you sleep well?" I hope the master bedroom was comfortable. His jaw clenched. "Don't play games with me. Marlene said you told her we have to leave. That you rented the house out. That's insane." "It's not insane," I replied. "It's legal. I own the property. I'm allowed to rent it. But we're here," he yelled, gesturing wildly toward the house. "We're your family. Are you?" I asked quietly. He stopped. Blinked. "What? Are you my family, Clifton?" I repeated, my voice soft but firm. "Because family doesn't demand. Family doesn't kick their elderly mother out of her own bedroom. Family doesn't hang up the phone when someone tries to speak." His face flushed darker. "I didn't kick you out. I just thought." "You thought what?" I interrupted, my voice rising now despite my best efforts. "That I should be grateful you and your wife and 6 of her relatives showed up without really asking? That I should be happy to give up my space, my peace, my home, just because you decided it was convenient?" "It's not like that," he stammered. "You're twisting things." "Am I?" I stepped closer. "Tell me, Clifton. When you got here Friday, did you look for me? Did you check if I was okay? Did you thank me for anything?" He opened his mouth, closed it, said nothing. "You didn't," I continued, my voice breaking now. You haven't checked on me once all weekend. Not a text. Not a call. You came into my home, took my bedroom, used my things, and treated me like I was invisible. Like I didn't matter. Mom, that's not. I'm not finished. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. For 43 years, I have been your mother. I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 2 jobs so you could go to college. I paid for your wedding. I gave you everything I had. And this is how you repay me? By treating me like a servant in my own home. His eyes dropped to the ground. Behind him, I could see the others gathering on the porch. Marlene, Priscilla, Todd, all of them watching. So yes, I said quietly. I rented the house. The new owners will be here at 6 tonight. You have until then to pack your things and leave. Where are we supposed to go? Clifton's voice was small now, almost childlike. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe a hotel. Maybe back home. That's not my problem to solve anymore. You're a grown man, Clifton. Figure it out. Marlene stormed down the porch steps, her robe flapping, her face twisted with rage. You can't do this. This is ridiculous. We drove 4 hours to get here. And you're welcome to drive 4 hours back, I said calmly. Or stay in town. There's a nice bed and breakfast about 15 minutes away. We don't have money for that, she shrieked. I looked at her expensive purse, her designer sunglasses, her perfectly manicured nails. Then maybe you should have been more grateful for free accommodations. Priscilla stepped forward, clutching her pearls like they were a lifeline. Young lady, I don't know who you think you are. I'm Eleanor Ridgway, I said firmly. And this is MY property. You're all trespassing now. So, I suggest you start packing. For a moment, nobody moved. The air felt electric, charged with shock and anger, and something else, realization, maybe, that I wasn't backing down. Then Clifton whispered, Mom, please, don't do this. And for just a second, I wavered, because he was still my son. Still the little boy I'd rocked to sleep, the teenager I'd cheered for at baseball games, the man I'd cried happy tears for at his wedding. But then I remembered his voice on the phone. Cold. Dismissive. Entitled. You did this, I said softly. Not me. You. I turned and walked into the barn, closing the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely lock it. I sat down on the small couch, pressed my face into my hands, and finally let the tears come. Not tears of regret, tears of release. Because I'd finally done it. I'd finally set a boundary. I'd finally said no. Outside, I could hear them shouting, arguing, scrambling. Car doors slamming. Suitcases being dragged across gravel. And at exactly 6 o'clock, I heard new voices. Polite. Warm. The young couple from Maine with their 2 small children, marveling at the farmhouse, thanking Marjorie for finding them such a perfect place. I watched from the window as Clifton loaded the last of his bags into his car, his face pale and tight. Marlene sat in the passenger seat, crying. The relatives had already left, scattering like leaves in the wind. Before he got in the car, Clifton looked toward the barn. Our eyes met across the yard. And for the first time all weekend, I saw something in his face I hadn't seen in years. Shame. He mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I read his lips. I'm sorry. Then he got in the car, and they drove away. I stood at the window long after they were gone, watching the sun set behind the hills, listening to the new family laughing in the farmhouse, feeling something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Was Eleanor too harsh, or did Clifton get exactly what he deserved? Let me know what you think in the comments. And hit that subscribe button, because this story isn't over yet. Not by a long shot. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I felt guilty. Not because I regretted what I'd done. But because for the first time in decades, I felt truly alone in a way I'd never experienced before. I'd always had Clifton as an anchor, even when he disappointed me. Even when he forgot my birthday or canceled visits. He was still there, somewhere in the background of my life, a reason to keep going. Now, I wasn't sure what we were to each other anymore. I made tea at midnight and sat by the barn window, looking at the farmhouse. Warm light glowed from the windows. I could see shadows moving inside. The young couple putting their children to bed, probably. A family that would actually appreciate this place. My phone buzzed. A text from Marjorie. You did the right thing. Get some sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. I kept replaying the look on Clifton's face when he drove away. The shame. The confusion. The hurt. Good, part of me thought. Let him hurt. Let him feel what it's like to lose something. But another part, the mother part that never quite shuts off, whispered. What if you just lost your son forever? I pushed the thought away and went to bed, but my dreams were restless. I saw David, my late husband, standing in our old kitchen, shaking his head. I saw Clifton as a little boy, crying because he'd scraped his knee, reaching for me. I woke up at dawn with tears on my face. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I tended my garden, fed the chickens, read books I couldn't focus on. The new tenants, Sarah and Michael, the couple from Maine, were polite and respectful. They waved when they saw me, asked if I needed anything, treated me like a neighbor, not an inconvenience. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt empty. On Wednesday, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Ridgway? A woman's voice, young and uncertain. Yes. This is Marlene, Clifton's wife. I sat up straighter, my heart suddenly racing. Marlene, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she said quickly. And I get it. We were awful. I was awful. But I wanted to call and apologize. Really apologize. I said nothing, waiting. Clifton's been a mess since we left, she continued, her voice thick. He barely talks, barely eats. He keeps saying he ruined everything with you. And honestly, Mrs. Ridgway, he's right. We both were terrible, entitled, disrespectful. I pushed him to ask for that visit, and I pushed him to take your bedroom, and I'm so sorry. Her voice broke on the last word. I closed my eyes, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet. But something softer than anger. Why are you calling, Marlene? I asked quietly. Because Clifton won't, she said. He's too ashamed. He thinks you hate him. And maybe you do. Maybe you should. But I wanted you to know that he gets it now. What he did. How he made you feel. He really gets it. Does he? I asked. Or is he just upset because he got caught? She was quiet for a moment. Then, both probably. But Mrs. Ridgway, I've never seen him like this. He's genuinely broken up about it. He keeps looking at old photos of you too. He cried yesterday. Clifton never cries. My throat tightened. Tell him I need time. I will, Marlene said softly. And for what it's worth, you taught me something too. About taking things for granted. About respect. I'm going to do better. I promise. After she hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. Maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe I'd gone too far. Or maybe, for the first time in my life, I'd gone exactly far enough. Do you think Eleanor should reach out to Clifton, or should she wait for him to make the first move? Let me know below, and keep watching because something unexpected is about to happen. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I settled into a routine in the barn apartment. Mornings with the chickens, afternoons in the garden, evenings reading on the porch. Sarah and Michael kept the farmhouse beautiful. Their kids played in the yard, respectful of my space but always waving and smiling when they saw me. It was peaceful, genuinely peaceful, but it was also lonely. I miss my son, not the entitled man who demanded my bedroom, but the boy he used to be. The one who used to help me plant flowers and make terrible pancakes on Mother's Day. One Saturday morning in late autumn, I was outside raking leaves when I heard a car coming up the driveway. I looked up, shielding my eyes from the sun, and froze. Clifton's car. He parked near the barn, not the farmhouse. Got out slowly. He looked thinner, older somehow. He was carrying flowers, wildflowers, the kind I used to pick with him when he was little. We stared at each other across the yard. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly. "Clifton." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I know I should have called," he said, taking a few hesitant steps closer. "But I didn't know what to say. I still don't really. But Marlene said you needed time, and it's been almost a month, and I had to see you." I leaned the rake against the barn wall. "Why?" "Because I'm sorry." His voice cracked. "Because I've been a terrible son. Because you deserved so much better than how I treated you, and I can't take it back, but I need you to know that I understand now. What I did. What I took for granted." He stepped closer, holding out the flowers. "I brought these because I remembered how we used to pick them together. How you taught me all the names. Queen Anne's lace. Black-eyed Susan's. Chicory." My eyes burned. He'd remembered. "You taught me everything, Mom," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "How to be kind. How to work hard. How to love people. And somewhere along the way, I forgot all of it. I became selfish. Entitled. Just like you said." A tear rolled down his cheek. "Marlene and I have been going to counseling. Talking about boundaries and respect and how we treat people. It's been hard, but I needed it. We both did." He wiped his face roughly. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't even know if you can forgive me. But I wanted you to know that I'm working on being better. Being the son you deserved all along." I stood there, holding back my own tears, watching my son, my grown, broken, humbled son, stand before me with wildflowers and a heart finally cracked open. "Clifton," I said softly. "Yeah, Mom? Come here." He crossed the distance between us in 3 steps and wrapped his arms around me. We both cried, hard, healing tears that washed away weeks of hurt and silence. "I'm so sorry," he whispered into my shoulder. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said, holding him tight. "I know you are." We stayed like that for a long time, 2 people who'd hurt each other learning how to be family again. When we finally pulled apart, I smiled through my tears. "You want some tea?" He laughed, that old familiar laugh I hadn't heard in years. "I'd love some." We sat on the barn porch together, drinking tea and talking, really talking for the first time in what felt like forever. He told me about counseling, about the changes he was making. I told him about the barn apartment, about Sarah and Michael, about how strange and freeing it felt to let go of the farmhouse. "I can't believe you actually did it," he said, shaking his head. "Rented out your own house while we were there." "Neither can I admitted. But I had to do something, Clifton. You weren't hearing me with words. I hear you now," he said quietly, loud and clear. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Clifton stood to leave. "Can I come back?" he asked. "Not to stay. Just to visit. Really visit." "Yes," I said. "But call first." He smiled. "Deal." I watched him drive away, but this time it felt different. Not like an ending. Like a beginning. Was this the right ending for Eleanor and Clifton, or should she have held her ground longer? Share your thoughts below, and stay tuned. We're almost at the end of this incredible journey. The months that followed were different. Better. Real. Clifton visited every other weekend, always calling ahead, always bringing something thoughtful, flowers, a book he thought I'd like, fresh bread from a bakery near his house. He helped me winterize the barn apartment, fixed a loose board on the porch, even helped me build a new chicken coop for my growing flock. Marlene came too, quieter now, more genuine. She apologized again, in person this time, with tears in her eyes and sincerity in her voice. We weren't close, not yet, but we were learning to be kind to each other. Her family never came back.
I didn't ask about them.
Some bridges are better left burned. Sarah and Michael's lease ended in December, and they asked if they could extend it through the spring. I agreed. The farmhouse was theirs now in all the ways that mattered. I had everything I needed in the barn. One cold January morning, I was feeding the chickens when I heard voices. Clifton's car was pulling up, unscheduled, which immediately made me nervous. But when he got out, he was smiling. Marlene was with him, and they were both carrying grocery bags. Surprise, Clifton said, grinning. We're making you brunch. Real brunch. The kind you used to make me when I was a kid. Pancakes. I asked, my heart warming. Terrible pancakes, he said. Just like old times. We cooked together in the barn's tiny kitchenette, laughing when the first batch burned, celebrating when the second batch came out perfect. We sat around the small table, eating and talking, and for the first time in years, it felt like family. Not the obligatory, surface-level family gatherings we'd had before. Real family. The kind built on respect and effort and choosing to show up. After we ate, Clifton pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. What's this? I asked. Just open it. Inside was a check. A large check. Made out to me. Clifton, I don't need. It's not about need, he interrupted gently. It's about debt. You paid for my college, my wedding, my down payment. You gave me everything, and I never paid you back. Not in money, not in gratitude. This doesn't cover it, not even close, but it's a start. I stared at the check, tears blurring the numbers. Clifton, this is too much. It's not enough, he said firmly. But it's what I can do right now. Use it for the garden, for the barn, for whatever you want.
You earned it, Mom.
1,000 times over. I looked at my son, this man who'd finally learned what it meant to give instead of take, and felt something settle deep in my chest.
Pride.
Real, earned pride. Thank you, I whispered. That evening, after they left, I sat on the barn porch with a cup of tea and watched the sunset. The farmhouse lights glowed warm in the distance. My chickens clucked softly in their coop. The winter air was cold but clean, and for the first time since David died, I felt truly at peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I'd stood up for myself. I'd set boundaries. I'd taught my son the hardest lesson he'd ever learned. And he'd actually learned it. Do you think Clifton's transformation was genuine, or do you think people can really change? Comment below and let me know your thoughts, because this story is almost over, but the message isn't. Spring came slowly, melting the snow and coaxing green shoots from the frozen ground. I planted a new garden, bigger this time, with vegetables and herbs and flowers that would bloom all summer. Sarah and Michael moved out in April, their lease ending just as they'd planned. They hugged me goodbye, thanked me for being the best landlord they'd ever had, and promised to visit. I decided not to rent the farmhouse again. Instead, I kept it as a guest house, available for friends, for visitors, for people who needed a quiet place to heal. And sometimes I stayed there myself, when the farmhouse felt less haunted and more like home again. Clifton and Marlene visited regularly now. Real visits where we talked and laughed and sometimes argued, but in the healthy way families do when they actually respect each other. In May, they brought news. Marlene was pregnant. We wanted you to be the first to know, Clifton said, his eyes bright with joy and nervousness. We're having a girl. And Mom, we want to name her Eleanor. After you, if that's okay. I cried. The good kind of tears. It's more than okay, I whispered, pulling them both into a hug. That summer, I taught Clifton how to build a crib. We worked together in the barn, sanding wood and measuring twice, talking about fatherhood and legacy and what it means to raise a child right. I want to be better than I was, he said one afternoon, pausing mid-measurement. I want my daughter to respect me, not fear me. Love me, not resent me. Then show her respect, I said simply. Treat her mother well. Keep your promises. Be present. The rest will follow. He nodded, absorbing the words like they were gospel. In September, little Eleanor Rose was born. 6 pounds, 8 ounces, with her father's eyes and her mother's nose, and a cry that could wake the dead. I held her in the hospital, this tiny, perfect thing named after me, and felt the circle complete itself. Life had taken so much from me, my husband, my peace, my faith in my son for a while. But it had also given back. In patience, in boundaries, in the quiet power of standing firm when love demanded it. Clifton was a different father than I'd expected. Attentive, present, humble. He asked for advice instead of assuming he knew everything. He called when he needed help. He showed up. And when little Eleanor was 3 months old, he brought her to the farm for the first time. We sat on the barn porch together, the baby asleep in my arms, and Clifton said quietly, "Thank you, Mom." For what? For not giving up on me. For teaching me the hard way. For loving me enough to let me fail. I looked down at the sleeping baby, this new beginning, this second chance. That's what love does, I said softly. It holds on, but it also lets go when it needs to. And it always demands respect. He reached over and squeezed my hand. I'll teach her that. I promise. And I believed him. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with someone you love? Was it worth it? Let me know in the comments. And don't miss the final chapter, where Eleanor shares the most important lesson of all. Now, 2 years later, I wake every morning to the sound of roosters and the smell of wildflowers. The farmhouse stands quiet in the distance, occasionally used by visitors, but mostly just there, a reminder of what I built, what I protected, what I learned to let go of. Little Eleanor comes to visit every week now. She's learning to walk, stumbling through my garden with her father close behind, laughing when the chickens scatter. I'm teaching her the names of flowers, just like I taught her father. Queen Anne's lace, black-eyed Susans,
Chicory.
The circle continues. Clifton is a good father, a better man than he was 2 years ago. Not perfect. None of us are, but trying.
Growing.
Learning. And that's all any of us can do. I think about that weekend often. The weekend I rented out my own house. The weekend I drew a line in the sand and refused to cross back over it. People have asked me since if I regret it. If I think I was too harsh, too cruel, too unforgiving. My answer is always the same, no. Because that weekend wasn't about revenge.
It was about respect.
It was about teaching my son that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's just another way of disappearing. And I disappeared enough. I'd spent 45 years teaching other people's children, raising my own, sacrificing my needs for everyone else. I'd earned my peace. I'd earned my space. I'd earned the right to be treated with dignity in my own home. And when that dignity was threatened, I protected it. Not with shouting, not with violence, but with quiet, firm, unshakable resolve. That's the lesson I want to leave behind. Not just for Clifton or for little Eleanor, but for anyone who's ever felt invisible in their own life. You are not a doormat. You are not a servant. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Love is important. Family is important. But so are you. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for the people you love is to say no, to set a boundary, to walk away until they learn to treat you with the respect you deserve. It won't be easy. It might hurt. It might cost you relationships, at least temporarily. But in the end, the relationships that survive will be stronger, realer, built on mutual respect instead of obligation and guilt. I sit on my porch now, watching the sunset behind the hills, and I feel something I haven't felt in decades.
Contentment.
Not because my life is perfect, not because every wound has healed, but because I finally understand what I'm worth, and I refuse to settle for anything less. The chickens settle in for the night. The farmhouse lights flicker on. Somewhere in the distance, I hear Clifton's car pulling up the driveway. Another surprise visit, probably, with little Eleanor ready to toddle through my garden. And I smile. Because this messy, imperfect, hard-won peace is what quiet justice looks like. Not loud, not vengeful, not cruel, just clear, just firm, just true. And in the end, that's the only kind of justice that lasts. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own boundaries and relationships, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling us what lesson you're taking away from Eleanor's story. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We have more incredible stories coming that will inspire you, challenge you, and remind you of your own worth. You don't want to miss them. Share your thoughts in the comments below and inspire others with your own experiences. Until next time, remember, peace isn't passive. It's powerful, and you deserve it.